the Lieutenant Governor was in town for a meeting with local law enforcement. Could you share what that meeting was about?
Yes, Antonio Delgado, our new Lieutenant Governor, who by the way is a great guy. It's the first time I had a chance to really spend some time with him at any length. And he has significant upstate connections, I might add. I'll talk about that in a second. But the Lieutenant Governor was here along with the chairperson of the Division of Criminal Justice Services, Roseanne Rosado. And what they do is they periodically travel the state to the give jurisdictions. If you remember, impact has now become give, having to do with gun eliminations and violence elimination. And they talk about programs that are working, programs that are not working, both locally and statewide. Also talking about the allocation of funds. They're asking us, where do we, need more funding.
Bail reform. Bail reform has been an issue. What went wrong? And have these issues been fixed?
Latter question, no, the issues have not been fixed. The first question, what went wrong? Imagine that you were a structural engineer and you were designing a new plane. Would you design the plane and never speak to a single pilot to get his or her input? And I think the answer is obvious. The answer is no. You would never design a plane like that. That would be almost professional malpractice. But what the legislators did in about 2017, 2018 was they designed, quote unquote, 3 reforms, and intentionally or unintentionally, they never spoke to prosecutors directly. Forms. We had 70% drop in Title I crimes. That's unheard of. That's miraculous. I call it the New York miracle.
And what are Title I crimes?
Rape, robbery, assault, motor vehicle theft, things of that nature. There are 9 of them, and it's a system devised by the FBI. So when you see a reduction of that amount, you're doing something right in law enforcement. But concomitantly with that, and this is the important thing, the prison population in New York State dropped 60%. So how can that be? For years we've been fed the misapprehension, the really miscalculation that just the way to solve the problem is just lock more people up, keep locking people up, and you'll solve the crime problem. Well, that's not the way it works. We tried that in the 80s and 90s with the quote-unquote war on drugs, which is a phrase I never use, except if I'm talking about someone else's impression of it. You don't make war on drugs. You're making war on people, and you're breaking up families, and you're making it a generational thing. Kids are being raised without fathers because dad had 3 ounces of cocaine and is doing life in prison. Those things are draconian and unacceptable, and prosecutors went about to change that in the early 90s. This county right here, Syracuse, New York, Onondaga County, we had the second drug diversion program in the state of New York, and one of the earliest ones in the country. And we diverted, since then, we've literally diverted thousands of people. I just think we're in a bad way with the quote-unquote bail reform. I mean, a perfect example, I harp on it all the time, and it's a case where the judge had the opportunity to set bail if she wanted to. But you have a young woman, Victoria Affett, immigrated to this country, went to high school, was successful in high school. I think she played team sports in high school. Didn't have any, and then she just started spiraling downward. And on her 5th felony arrest, separate incidents, 5th felony arrest, we finally said to the judge, this is a bail eligible case now. I don't think the judge listened to us for 30 seconds and said, no, released on her own recognizance. And then a week later, she breaks into Connie Turi's apartment at Skyline and tortures this woman to death. And Kenny, there are cops that were at that scene that are still undergoing counseling to help them deal with what they saw, with what that young girl did to that poor woman, 93 years old. Changes are ultimately going to prove, in my judgment, to be superficial. They've eliminated the least restrictive means necessary clause, but it doesn't change the number of crimes that are still not bail eligible. There's literally hundreds of them. Burglaries, making a terrorist threat. Remember, A couple of weeks ago, we had a young man who, after the Tops massacre in Buffalo, he threatened the Tops store in Manlius. He threatened to shoot it up. That case is not bail eligible. Even though there's substantial, and he's presumed innocent, I recognize that, but there's substantial evidence pointing to his guilt and his involvement. Reckless assault of a child, vehicular assault, reckless endangerment. A guy who holds people hostage or shoots at somebody and misses in an effort to scare them. Not bail eligible. Can't even consider bail. Doesn't matter how dangerous the guy is. Doesn't matter about his record and so forth and so on. So, I mean, and here's a list of them. There's hundreds of them. All I'm asking is, do away with cash bail. Do away with it. But when the bail reform was being considered, all of the advocates kept pointing to New Jersey, New Jersey, New Jersey. Okay, let's do what New Jersey does. Like 49 other states, New Jersey allows a judge to consider the dangerousness of the person in front of them. Not convicting them. They're presumed innocent. Understood? Presumed innocent actually applies to a trial, but be that as it may, they stand in front of the judge convicted of nothing. But there's nothing ever in the Constitution that says the Constitution is a suicide pact, where you have to let out people who continually offend, who clearly are going to reoffend, who clearly are a danger not only to themselves but to society at large. So let's do what Jersey does. Give the judge the discretion to consider dangerousness. And if the judge is wrong, there's already an appellate process built in. Town judge sets bail, or town judge says, I'm remanding you with no bail because I consider this crime outrageously dangerous. I consider you've made threats against Tops. You came perilously close to acting out on that. I'm not going to allow you at liberty. If he or she is wrong, come to county court, come to Supreme Court. We have that happen all the time, sadly, that judges overrule us. Then the people go out and commit more crimes, and the judge says, I can't comment, it's ethical or unethical, I can't comment on it. And people look at me, Fitz, what are you doing? I'm trying.